This is the third part of a three-part series on building a cruising skateboard. In the first part, we laminated plywood using urethane glue. In the second part, we fiberglassed that and put a fabric finish on the top, which we're going to sand now. This has the actual epoxy coating on it. We're sanding it with 220 grit sandpaper. Then we're going to wipe that off. We always use a tack cloth, which we'll show you later, after wiping something off to remove all the particulate matter. Now we're going to put a heavy coat of clear polyurethane on the entire surface, and we're going to use a process called tipping. In order to tip, you need a sponge brush, and basically you're going to drag that across the surface with only about the weight of the brush itself. This will remove any air bubbles and make the surface smooth and uniform all the way across. Now you're actually not going to rub any polyurethane off the surface. You just want to smooth it out. So this is the gloss urethane dry. It looks very much as it does when it's wet because it's very shiny. And then you're going to repeat this process, sanding lightly in between each coat on both sides. Now we're going to build a kick plate for the back of the skateboard. I'm using a 1/2 inch sheet of polyurethane, polypropylene, that was originally a cutting board. And we're going to cut this out with the saber saw, the same saw that we used to cut the skateboard. We're going to drill 2 1/2 inch countersink holes, and then inside that, after the 1/2 inch holes are drilled, we're going to open the bottom of the hole with a 5 32nd inch bit, and this will hold the nuts to hold on the kick plate. Then we're going to wet sand it. This now has the 2 coats of polyurethane on each side. We're wet sanding it because wet sanding doesn't scratch or abrade the surface quite as much as dry sanding does. And then we're going to tip it once again. And on this side, we're going to start with the wet sandpaper dry, and then after we get the entire surface smoothed out with the dry sandpaper, we're going to wipe that off, then wet it, and go around in a circular motion over the entire surface. You'll notice if you're doing this properly that the polyurethane, as you're sanding it off, starts to build up in a white chalky kind of it starts out as a liquid and turns more into a paste as you wipe it in more. And you'll notice underneath of it that the surface is actually getting much smoother. And it looks something like this at this point. But now we want to put the polyurethane on them. Here's a tack cloth we were talking about earlier. The tack cloth is sticky actually, and it picks up any particles or sawdust, anything at all that might be on the surface that you don't want into the finish. And we're going to carefully apply the heavy coat of polyurethane to this side. This is the last finish coat that we're putting on the surface. So we like to make this one as smooth as we can. You can actually put as many coats of this on here as you like and eventually end up with a surface very similar to plexiglass. But this will be enough for us. This is going to get scratched up anyway, but it'll certainly protect the surface from any moisture or mild abuse, and actually the abuse that skateboards generally get. And there we have the finished tipping process. The board now will dry, and then we'll get ready to put the hardware on. Now here's the dried polyurethane. Here are the wheels and the trucks, and the bearings and the risers. The first thing we're going to do is attach the kick plate. So I'm drilling a 1/8 inch pilot hole for the 5 32nd inch main bolt hole. This is called a rosebud or countersink bit. This will allow the surface to be flat with the flathead screws. If they stick up just a little bit, that's fine. You definitely don't want to bury them below the surface, or it will start eating into the wood. You want to get the full benefit of the head of the screw, which is actually embedded into the epoxy resin on the top. In order to get a center line on the bottom to mount the trucks, we're going to first put down a piece of tape, which is roughly in the center, and then mark the exact center with a thin pen line. Then we're going to mark inside the holes of the trucks after they're located, and again we'll use first a 1/8 inch bit followed by the 5/32 inch bit to mount the trucks. Here we're widening the hole. The reason for the pilot hole is so that the main hole doesn't stray from exactly where you want it. Then we're then going to use the same countersink bit to use on the deck surface, the top, and then we're going to take the tape off. We have our holes located. We're then going to use the riser underneath the truck, and actually we want to tighten these in an X shape, meaning one bolt and then diagonally across from it attach the next one. This will tighten the bolts more evenly. Then when everything's in place, we'll do a final tightening by hand so that you can see how tight it is. You don't want to pull these bolts through the surface or smash the riser unnecessarily. Now I'm using a piece of bamboo, a screwdriver, a doorstop, and a magic marker to push the bearings in. You can use any of those or whatever you can fit in there that'll apply even pressure to the bearing as you're pushing it into the hole. We're cutting off the end of the bolts that were used on the kick plate now so they don't drag. And this is the first time the skateboard's seen the light of day since it was fiberglassed. It looks pretty good in this light, much better than it did in the fluorescent lights where we were filming before. This board has 65mm urethane wheels. This is the first time it's been on the sidewalk and the first time it's been on the street. It looks pretty good. We built a cruising board, as you know, made up of different aspects or characteristics of some other boards. You can use this method of construction for a park board, a cruising board like this one, a bowl rider for riding inside of a swimming pool, or anything for downhill to freestyle. So be safe and enjoy yourself. It was a lot of fun making this video. We hope you enjoyed watching it. Thanks for joining us.